Hello, podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer. Coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, Shrubby Buddies, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I am Matthew C. the First, joined with Timothy Tater Tot Fleischer. Timmy, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Mr. Uncle Matt.
Hello.
Great to see you today.
Better to see you. +2.
False.
True. So what's up, dude? We got a podcast here. We're back in the studio. Last week we were at Dutch Mill doing the plant trivia, which was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. We had a great time. You know, lots of hecklers out there giving us a hard time. But all in all, it was a real fun time. And, it's nice to be back in the air-conditioned studio at the Guthrie household.
Yeah, we got some tea storms, little summer tea storms rolling through here right now in Central Ohio.
It looks like it's about to be like sundown, but what time is it?
It's like 5:45.
Yeah, it's not sundown yet, but it's
PM.
just got that darkness out there. I love it.
What does PM stand for?
Post
morning?
Post-meridian?
Post-meridian?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, so this past week was hot as shit and humid and miserable, and I was grumpy all week and didn't want to be at work and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, it was a long week.
It was a long week. And I was like, woke up late one day making it in because I forgot to reset my alarm from being up in the motherland. And then another day I had a doctor's appointment. So there was 2 days that I was in late. I mean, not like crazy late, like an hour and a half late. But
yeah, but that's unlike you.
It is unlike me. But nonetheless, it was still a long week and a miserable week. But we bolted out of work early on Friday and went and had a drink, went to the record shop.
Grab some cheesesteaks.
Grabbed some food at Wario's in Columbus, and you really let me down.
I did.
Because you didn't eat all of your cheesesteak.
Sorry.
I
did, just not in the first sitting.
No, unlike you.
Yeah.
Unlike you to only eat 6 inches of the old Wario's cheesesteak. You know what I'm saying?
6 inches is all that I could take at that moment.
Yeah.
So I saved the other 6 for later.
Yeah, was it good?
It was so good. I just ate it cold.
Isn't it nice, like, when the bread kind of soaks up some of those juices and...
Yeah, good cheesesteak's got some damp bread. Yeah.
Old damp bread.
Damp and chewy.
I like it.
A little crunchy on the outside.
Yeah, it was good. Good time. So, yeah, that was kind of some Friday afternoon relief from the heat.
Yeah, it was
Stopped
fun.
and saw our buddy Elijah at Spoonful Records in Columbus. And
the three of you got a ton of records. I just bought one fairly inexpensive used one, but the three of you went payday crazy.
Well, I wouldn't say payday crazy. I just got a couple of used ones and then a new one.
Okay.
So, I mean, it wasn't anything. Payday crazy is like when I'm going after some of those, like, not Holy Grail records, but payday crazy was like when I bought the Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I mean, that right there was the most I've ever spent on a vinyl record.
Yeah.
So, on one album, I suppose.
Sometimes you gotta
four
do it.
records, or is it 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think it's 4 records.
You know what my Holy Grail is?
What?
You know it.
Oh, it's a Billy Joel album, but I can't remember which one.
It's the River of Dreams album.
Rivers of Dreams.
Nope. You're mixing up two bands there.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, it's Billy Joel's studio album from like 93.
Can't find it anywhere, huh?
Nope, because it was not a big year for records were so out then. So
the CDs were in the early 90s.
So they didn't some of the 90s stuff. If it hasn't been repressed a bunch, it's hard to find.
Yeah.
So
well, that's
hope to find that one someday.
I think mine is Beck Midnight Vultures, and that's the same thing. They've never repressed it. So it's like when someone has one for sale, I mean, it's like $300, $400. You
Can't
know?
be dropping that kind of coin.
No, I don't have that kind of coin. I'm a horticulturist.
Me neither.
You know? But anyways, man, good stuff.
This could get off the rails quick.
It's
here.
all right. It's allowed to get off the rails. This is our podcast.
That's true.
We can do what we please.
Yes.
We can talk about vinyl. We can talk about food.
And I was very disappointed in you for being late to work twice last week because
sorry.
you're not tardy very often.
Nope.
So,
But one of the days I was late, I was still to my computer before all of you guys were done effing around down there.
whatever.
If only people really knew what our workplace was like.
We work hard. We work hard to make the people of Dublin happy.
Yep.
Customer
Absolutely.
service driven.
Some of us work hard at not working.
Yep. We won't say any names.
No names are being mentioned.
Nope.
So cool, man. So anything else you want to add to that?
No. Any highlights from your trip to Michigan? Since we didn't get to recap that last week.
No, I mean, we went up, built a deck,
Oven
hung out,
floor.
got a little bit of relaxing in.
Brought me back a bottle of gin.
I brought you and Brenna back and myself back a bottle of gin. It's from what's the name of that distillery? Long Road Distilling up in Michigan, and they have this really cool gin that we love that's purple.
Colored with pea flower.
Yeah, pea flower. It's colored with pea flower, which gives it a purple hue, which is fun in a cocktail.
Makes a gorgeous gin and tonic. Gorgeous and delicious.
Yeah, and it is a really good gin. But yeah, other than that, man, I mean, it wasn't a trip of going out and doing a lot of fun things. Besides that, the Traverse City area this time of the year is just maddening.
Tourist
with the number
central.
of people. Yeah, so we went into town, to the Home Depot, went to the Menards and stuff, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time in there, grab lunch in there one day, but built the deck, hung out. I did get to check out the Grass River Nature Preserve. They reopened their boardwalks, which is my favorite nature preserve up there. I absolutely love that place. So I did get to go out and walk the new boardwalk, saw a river otter, and saw a loon with her babies. So that was kind of cool.
Loons and river otters. How magical.
Lots of fun native plants in the fen up there. A lot of, I just love, there's this meadow of Carex stricta.
Let nature guide you.
With lots of ferns and thalictrum and monarda and different things popping up through it. So that's a lot of fun. Got to see that.
Very good. I've been there.
Yeah, you have.
There was about 4 feet of powder
Mm-hmm.
over it. I couldn't see any of what you're talking about.
No. Well, you'll get up there and see it, though.
I will.
It'll be a good time. We'll go, this fall, we can go up and you can experience the GRMP, Grass River Nature Preserve. Plus, we can go do trivia with them and have a good time.
Let's get a fall trip on the docket.
Get a little drunk at the Shorts Brewing and have a good time. So,
all right. Love it.
Cool, man. So, yeah, nothing for you to speak on from your week?
Nope.
No?
It was hot, like we said. I had a number of people that don't work with me say to me this week, boy, it's hot out there. And I'm just like, yeah, you don't have to tell me.
Yeah, dude.
You're telling the wrong person that. I know.
Anything above 65 is hot, right?
Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cool, man.
All right. Rock on.
Rock on what you got on, man.
Mike.
All right. All right. So you want to do our What's in Bloom segment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do it. Stigma anther pollen style. What's a bloomin' crocodile?
Chomp, chomp. Like a crocodile.
Chomp. Yeah. So, Timmy, what is in bloom for us right now? Today is 6/29. What have you noticed this past week that's flowering that we can share with our listeners of the world? And
there's a lot in bloom.
Yeah.
And I started this list 2 weeks ago, but then we didn't do this segment last week. So I had to take a few things off that were done blooming by the time today rolled around.
Mm-hmm.
But Asiatic lilies are blooming. These are true lilies. I was talking to you earlier this week about how one of my pet peeves is when people call daylilies lilies.
Yeah.
These are actually lilies, not daylilies. But the daylily that's blooming right now is the... My eyes aren't working very well today.
Oh, like the ditch lilies?
Oh, the ditch lilies. Hemerocallis fulva, not to be confused with vulva. That's a different thing.
Thank you.
But they're the big, tall orange daylilies. They call them ditch lilies because they're growing in all the ditches as you're driving down the state routes. And they're a nice shade of orange and they're pretty, but they suck.
Yeah.
They're just...
I've heard them called shithouse lilies too.
Yeah.
You ever heard that before? Where I guess back in the day when people would put their poop house out away from the house, like when obviously before we had like modern day plumbing, you know, you had like
They would landscape the shit house.
and they would put ditch lilies around the shit house to help like make it look nice.
Weird.
I don't know. Shit
Weird.
house lilies. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They
go
don't
on.
belong. They don't belong in the landscape. They're just a terrible plant, but
Yeah.
that's another day, another dollar. Chicory, which is like another roadside type weed that I don't know if chicory is native or not, but it's got a pretty blue flower, and it's worth mentioning because people make coffee out of it.
Yeah.
Well, not like true coffee, but chicory coffee. Chicory dickory dock.
Let's run up the clock.
The lavender's blooming. I've got some lavender in a landscape downtown Dublin, and it's really pretty right now. Eryngium sea holly. So it's a close relative to rattlesnake master, but it kind of has that, it looks like a weed, right?
Like a thistle.
Looks like a thistle, but
Yeah.
when it blooms, it's pretty cool with the blue.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, they're pretty, they really pop in the landscape. Yucca's blooming, Yucca filamentosa. You know, those belong in the Taco Bell landscape. From a couple Coreopsis are blooming, threadleaf, lanceleaf. You've got some prairies in Dublin that have tons of Coreopsis blooming. They're really pretty right now.
Yeah.
Let's see, creeping bellflower, which is a type of campanula that's pretty aggressive. That's not great for the garden either.
How does Shinny say it? How does Brian Shinniger?
Campanula.
Shinny, are you listening to this?
Hey, Shinny, campanula.
Campanula.
He calls campanula campanula. It doesn't matter how you say it as long as you spell it right.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it.
I do too.
Campanula.
Yeah, there you go, Shinny.
We're gonna we're gonna have him on sometime though.
Oh, dude, I would love that. Can
We
we
are.
please?
We are.
All
We
right,
will.
cool.
My blue paradise phlox is blooming at home, which is a really cool garden phlox that starts out blue in like the shady early cool part of the day and then turns to like a bright magenta pink as the sun blares down on it. So the flower changes color.
Science.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is cool.
So it's one of my favorites. Something always eats it in the backyard, probably deer and or rabbits. But in the front yard this year, they've left it alone. It's just covered in blooms. The astilbes are blooming. The hostas are blooming, which we're not growing hostas typically for the bloom, but they are blooming. And I do get hummers that visit my hosta flowers at home.
Nothing like a good Hummer.
So I leave them on there.
You know, I'm probably in the minority on this, but I don't mind a hosta flower. I think some of the hosta flowers are gorgeous, especially the ones that are just like
Short and compact.
I don't even mind the tall ones that just have these real pretty white flowers on them.
I also don't mind them, but we don't grow them for them.
Sure,
You're not
yeah.
typically growing them
Correct.
for the flowers, right?
But I do know that there's a lot of people that are like, nah, hosta flowers, but I don't mind them. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Bottle brush buckeye, which is a shrubby buckeye, shrubby buckeye. I think your neighbor has some on the corner of his house over here.
They do.
We'll have to get some pictures of that one up. That's one of my favorites when they're in full bloom.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Chestnut trees. So I don't know if it's American chestnut or Chinese or some hybrids, but I've just noticed that the chestnut trees around town really grab your attention when they're blooming. And trumpet vine.
Yeah.
You noticed that the other day.
I
Put
did,
trumpet
yeah.
vine on there.
Growing up like a telephone pole in
bright
the ditch.
orange.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Cool. So it's another ditch plant right there with the ditch lilies.
lots of ditch plants. So that's what's in bloom, Crocodile.
Cool, man. So
Yeah, what do we do? What are we talking about
So
today? What's the main vein of the topic?
Okay, here's the main vein. So it's been really, really stinking hot out, right? And what does everyone want to do when it's hot out besides go into the air conditioning? They're out gardening. They want to find a nice shady spot, right?
Because ideally you want to get in the AC.
Ideally.
But if you have to be outside, it's going to be a little cooler in the shade. Not much, but provide some relief.
So, but like being in the shade, it's a little dark and can be a little scary. So we want to talk about perennials in the shade that will help brighten that spot up a little.
Yeah. perennials that could be like a beacon of light in a dark, shady area, right?
like
that just
that.
kind of grab your attention from a distance and say, "Look at that! It's shady, but it's shining bright."
Kind of like the Beacon series and Patience. They're just like a shining light of bright color.
That's exactly what I
don't
wasn't
know.
thinking.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we want to talk about perennials to brighten up your shady spot.
Yeah, so we're really going to be focusing on like whites and chartreuses and yellows today, and a few things with blooms. Well, everything's going to have blooms, but we're going to focus mostly on foliage, but a few flowers.
Yeah.
For the shade. So
Sweet.
So
I'm excited. So people, listen to this. Take down notes. Add some of these things to help brighten up your shade garden.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do this talk without talking about Sun King Aurelia, spikenard, and this is
Love that name.
This is a Megan Fleischer go-to. Megan Fleischer, I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of her favorites, and so we have like 17 of them in our little yard, and they're big plants, so you notice them. But it is
your house is a beacon of light. So when planes are flying in from the east, because they fly into the wind, they just are like, there's the Fleischers.
Yeah.
And it's just this beacon of yellow Sun King Aurelia shining bright at them.
We do have a lot, and this is a perennial, but it kind of acts like a shrub here.
Yeah, they do get big.
They don't stay up in the winter time. That's why we're going to consider it a perennial, because as soon as it gets cold, they just melt to the ground. But they have the presence of a shrub in the garden.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen these things. I think the tag probably says 3 to 4 foot tall and wide on them, which in its own is a big, but I think I've seen these things at like 5 foot tall.
I think we've got one in the front corner that's over 5 feet tall.
Okay, yeah.
By 5 feet.
Yeah. So it's big. Big shrubby like thing.
And we're growing it for the foliage.
Yeah, big chunky foliage, bright chartreuse. It does flower. The flowers are kind of neat on it. They're these little they look like little molecule type thing.
They
I
do.
don't know. They kind of hang off of it.
The flowers are neat, but you're not going to see them from a distance.
No.
But this plant is just going to draw your attention right away.
Yeah, it does really well in the shade, brightens up shady spots, back of the shade garden type thing because of the size that it gets. But it's one of these ones too. You're going to put it in the ground in a gallon pot, and it's going to be like the size of any of your other perennials, and it's going to take it a few years to get to the size that it needs or that it's going to be at. But if you're patient with it and you give it 3 or 4 years, it's really going to create this nice big mass of just bright yellow chartreuse colored foliage.
Yeah, and if you put it in the deepest, densest shade, it's not going to be quite as vibrant, but it's still going to have that limey color to it.
Limey green color. Little part shade, you give it a little morning sun.
Yeah. If you put it in full sun, it has a nice color for a while, but then it really starts to burn. So you want to keep it in the shade for sure.
Not to mention, it was the perennial plant of the year a few years back.
Yeah,
so
it was.
That's a good thing.
It was.
Cool. Yeah, Sun King Aurelia. It's a fun one, man.
Yeah.
Kind of on the same note with the chartreusey colored foliage, a plant that you really like, I think you may have some planted at home, is Moonglow Astilbes. So we have your traditional Astilbes, which is just green foliage with white, pinks, purples, different colored flowers like that. But the Moonglow Astilbes is going to have that chartreusey colored foliage with the pink flower.
Yep.
But there again, the pink flower isn't really what's brightening up this spot. It's going to be that more yellow foliage.
Yeah, the one we have that's doing really well in our landscape, we brought home from Asheville last year. We bought it from the Shady ladies.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we brought home a number of things, but that's one of those things that I'm pretty sure came from there.
Yeah. What was the name of that? Is it Raymond Nursery?
Yeah.
Maybe down there in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Really cool nursery. If you're ever in that area, like the Asheville, Hendersonville area, definitely check out this nursery.
And
it's
follow the
cool.
Shady ladies on Instagram.
The Shady ladies of, is it like Raymond House or something? I don't know, but yeah. Check them out. They're a lot of fun. So cool, man. Yeah. Anything you want to, I mean, I know with the Astilbes, do really well in the full shade, prefer some extra moisture, some extra water. So if you have a really, really dry shaded garden, until it gets established, you may have to give this thing a little supplemental watering, but
we've got ours just under some pawpaw seedlings that I've got in the back, and it's just really glowing back there.
I love it. Yeah, I
So.
love it, man. So a runcus is one of these ones that we put on there not for foliage color but for flower color. And the runcus will grow. You can get different cultivars from stuff that's going to get 4 or 5 feet tall to stuff that's going to get 1.5 or 2 foot tall.
Common name, goat's beard.
Goat's beard. Yeah, sorry, goat's beard. But this is one that will over time will colonize and spread and not overtake a garden, but just create like a really nice colony. But it just loads up with these pretty white flowers, creamy white colored flowers on the top of it, which I think, will lighten up kind of a dark area. So
Yeah, I think I like to use, say, allium in mass, like in a river. I think this is a good one to use in the shade that way, like a ribbon or a river running through your shade garden. And when it's not in bloom, it still looks like a nice clean plant, but when it's blooming, it certainly brightens up that area.
yeah, so if excuse me, if you do have the dry shade and the astilbes don't work for you, this would be a good alternative because it can handle the drier shade a little bit more so than the astilbe can. It's still going to have the same kind of similar foliage. Maybe not. Maybe it's a little bit more of a fine foliage, a little bit more refined, but it still has that kind of astilbe, that false spirea kind of look to it, but does a little bit better in the dry shade. But
And like you said, a range of sizes.
A range of sizes. So from I was calling it a runcus fairy hairy, and you were laughing your ass off at me because it's fairy hair, but we're going to roll with fairy hairy.
Fairy hairy, aka fairy hair, is a real small one, but then like the straight species gets 3-4 feet tall.
At least.
So, and then there's cultivars in between, like Misty Lace and Chantilly Lace that stay kind of in between there somewhere.
Yeah, we've talked about a runcus before, but
we sure have.
It's a great perennial. So there again, this is one of the one that the flower is going to help brighten up that shady spot for you. But yeah, definitely add this to your shady perennial garden. I don't see enough of it used, but when I do see it used, I'm just like, yes, that's such a nice perennial.
Yeah, and a episode about shade we would be remiss if we didn't mention hostas.
Yeah, correct.
And what did we decide there was in the last episode? Like,
oh, geez, it was like
7,200 different
7,600. I don't know.
Cultivars of hosta.
Over 7,000 cultivars. Yeah.
And Matt and I know them all real well, but we had to pick our top 3 for this talk.
I think it was John, and it made me think. I think it was a few years ago in Chicago at the PPA. John Greenlee was talking on the bus with like Kelly Norris or Brent or somebody, and they were like, he was like, rumor is if you signed up for the PPA this year, they're going to name a new rose after you because there's so many, and it just made me think of hostas. I'm like, that's probably what they do with hostas too, because there's so many hosta.
They're running out of names.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I don't know.
And we don't really know all of them, but for this purpose, we thought we would choose 3: a variegated white. Was that the Fire and Ice? Fire and Ice.
Yep.
And so that's got the green in the center and the white along the outside of the leaves. Autumn Frost, which is a variegated chartreuse. So it's got the yellow on the outside of the leaves and the green in the middle.
Yep.
And then Fire Island, which has been a favorite of you and I for a few years now.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about that one?
I like Fire Island. First of all, I love chartreuse colored plants. I know I'm not the only one. There's a reason why there's so many new cultivars coming out with the chartreuse colored foliage. But what's cool about Fire Island is it's a smaller hosta, first of all, but it gets so the petioles of the leaves, basically the stem of the leaf is red, and which is really cool with hostas. It's not your typical green. So you get this real pretty red petiole that comes up with this chartreuse yellowy colored foliage, and then the stems, the flower stems on it are also dark in color, and then the flower itself is just a really pretty, super, super dark.
It is
purple,
one of the darkest ones.
Dark purple colored flower. So just a really great introduction. And there's been a lot of new introductions off of Fire Island, some variegated ones, and they're all kind of this like they have fire kind of in the name or island in the name, because they're all like,
when you have so many hostas, you've got to start doing something that's different, right?
Mm-hmm,
because how many can you make that have white and green on the leaves. Well, this one adds a super dark purple flower
Yeah.
with the dark flower stalk and then these really nice dark red petiole stems of the leaves. So
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of, they have to do something different. So there's so many different hostas. We just listed 3 that we like.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of really cool stuff with breeding. We sat through a talk last year where there's a hosta breeder out west that's really starting to focus in on that red that I spoke of with Fire Island, where he's bringing that red more up into the leaf.
Into the leaf.
Hosta,
Yeah, that's going to be
which is pretty cool. And then also just you can find narrow leafed hostas that have this chartreusey color, like some of them are funky names like Squiggles and Wiggles and Curly Fries and things, and you can get like different ruffled textures of the hostas. Just Google it. You're going to find a bazillion different hosta cultivars, but
at least 7,200.
Yeah, at least that many. So those are 3 that we like. We had Patriot hosta on there, but we chose to go with Fire and Ice. We just feel like Fire and Ice is a nicer, cleaner looking hosta, though Patriot is
tried and true.
A tried and true staple. We're just
guacamole. I like guacamole.
Yeah,
is another good variegated one.
Yeah, there's so many different ones.
But the ones we chose, Fire and Ice, Fire Island, and Autumn Frost are all super bright ones.
Yeah,
for shade. And
absolutely.
But just don't forget the deer really like to eat them. So
yeah,
that's like in general.
Yeah, it's like a little salad bar for the deer.
Yeah.
Golden Heart Dicentra is one that I like. So it's a bleeding heart with yellow foliage. So just like the bleeding hearts that your grandma had planted around the farmstead, same thing, but with yellow foliage on it. And there's even...
Because everybody's grandma grew up on a farmstead, right?
Everybody's grandma lived on... I mean, in my mind, right? Yeah. Even though, like, my grandma didn't grow up on a farmstead.
Never did mine.
Yeah. Bleeding hearts and peonies.
Where were we? It is a super bright, clean leaf. And Matt, you've used some of this at the Kaufman homestead.
Yeah.
Because it's a homesteady plant and it's
I
really pretty.
Yeah.
Does it have red blooms?
Yeah, like that pinky red flower. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's a good one. Gold Heart Dicentra. And there's a Dicentra I'm going to mention that could also work for kind of brightening up the area. And I can't remember the cultivar name, but it's a white flowering Dicentra with a real pretty, not green, but kind of this pretty like steel blue colored foliage to it. Kind of a bluey green.
Yeah, I can't
foliage.
think of the name of that cultivar, but just
a
bleeding heart with white blooms.
Yeah, so the yellow leafed bleeding heart, Gold Heart Dicentra. Man, what else are we going to talk about here, Timmy?
How about we skip down to Sedum tornatum, which is a type of sedum, a woodland stone crop or a woodland sedum. But what's unique about this sedum is it's native. It's one of our native sedums, which is really cool because most of the ones we use in the landscape aren't native. But also it's a shade-loving native sedum. So usually think of sedums being in the driest, sunniest spots and doing well. These do just fine in some pretty dry, shady areas as well.
Yeah.
And they are a small, more of a creeping ground cover sedum, but they just get lit up with a bunch of little white blooms that dance just above the foliage. So when they're blooming, you hardly even see the leaves. So really great, like if you're really into the natives, great ground cover native for these shady areas to replace some of these, really terrible, invasive and aggressive ground covers that we tend to use.
Oh, yeah.
Like the English ivies and the bugle weeds and all that periwinkle, all that crap.
Ugh. Yeah.
So, Sedum tornatum.
Sedum tornatum, yeah. And on the same lines as ground cover, one that we talked about was snowdrop windflower or anemone sylvestris. Mm-hmm. And this is a real cool one. So a lot of times when people think of anemone, they think of the taller Japanese anemone that blooms like later in the year. Well,
September.
This is an early spring bloomer. Again, forms a really nice ground cover. It will seed itself around. Mm-hmm. It won't take over your garden like ajugas and things like that, but I would say it's like semi-aggressive. It forms a really nice colony rather quick. It does a really good job of seeding itself around, but it just kind of blankets whatever area it's in with these really nice white clean flowers.
Big
And
for the size of the plant. They're huge flowers.
they are big white flowers.
You know, like
yeah.
each flower is probably the size of like a silver dollar, but the plants are only a few inches tall.
Yeah.
So a lot of flower to foliage ratio there.
Yeah, so Snowdrop Windflower, definitely check it out. I even like when it's done flowering, the seed heads that are on it are just these big like marble sized
Puff balls
that kind of hang out, and they slowly, like you say, they slowly get bigger, and then they kind of disperse the seed everywhere. But fantastic ground cover, lots of white flowers, does a good job of kind of lightening up that shade garden early on in the spring. So yeah, so that's kind of hitting on a couple of flowering ground covers that we have to talk to you all about. And on the lines of spring flowering, so there's stinking hellebores, or I can never get the name right. Helleborus fetidus. Okay, so I personally have never used it. I love them. I think you've probably planted some and used it more. You probably have more experience with it.
I've helped people plant them in their gardens. I've never used them in any of I don't have a lot of shade gardens in Dublin. And it would be something, our shade gardens are packed full at home right now, but it's one that I really want to use if I can find the right place for it. But it's just a really basic hellebore with flowers that aren't super showy. Like they're breeding all these hellebores now with these blacks and maroons and these giant flowers. These flowers are a lot different. They're smaller, but they grow in giant clusters on the top of the plant.
Yeah.
And they're bright white, but then they start as a chartreuse and they fade to a chartreuse. And it's one of those things that they'll colonize an area really well and they just grab your eye. I know there's some in the entrance to Smith's Gardens up in where's that at, in Delaware area?
I would say like more the kind of like Ostrander-ish.
When you pull into Smith's to the left, they've got a bunch of white pine, and they've just got a bunch of this just kind of colonizing through there, and it always grabs my eye when I drive up through there.
And not to mention how tough hellebores are. Yeah. So they are a long-lived perennial. Like these suckers, we have areas in Dublin where we found these in the middle of wooded areas where it's like these were from homes and farms and stuff that are long since gone, and the area's been developed, and it's just like these hellebores are just still thriving.
And we're not taking anything away from the all the other hellebores that are out there, but those are more like you got to get right up under those plants and to notice the beauty. These stinking hellebores, you can visit them from a distance and see what they.
Yeah, they're really cool. And I know Brenda really likes the stinking hellebores. Yeah. So, cool, man. Hellebores, the stinking hellebores is a good one. Persicaria, golden arrows. This would be if you have. It would be more part shade to. It's not going to do as well in dense shade, but more of a part shade. So, fleece flower, I believe, is the common name for it. So, golden arrow is fleece flower, and it's just going to be these kind of elongated heart-shaped leaves, spade-shaped leaves that are yellow in color, and they just get these pretty red flowers on them, and they kind of colonize and form this. This nice area. They do prefer some wet soil, so it would need to be an area that receives some extra moisture. Otherwise, they're probably just going to, as the summer moves on and we get into dry periods, the leaves will just kind of turn kind of crispy on them.
Definitely wants a little more moisture with these, and we have a couple of these at home back around our fire pit, and it's one of those ones that you can see like when the sun's going down and that area gets super shady, it just really stands out back there.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I didn't realize you guys had some at your house.
Yeah, we have a couple back there.
They were on the fire pit area?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the area where you guys sprayed the mountain mint? Probably.
I found there's a mountain mint back there.
Oh, is there really?
It's only about a foot tall, though.
Oh,
so
okay.
It might have gotten sprayed but regened. I don't know. It doesn't look like yours.
Well,
it's in a more of a sunny spot. I want to move it up into the proper area of the garden.
Do you?
But I found it.
Cool. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get some of that Smoky Mountain mint in my garden somewhere. I'm obsessed with it right now. Anyways, Grasses, man. We haven't talked about a single grass on here, so let's finish up this talk with some grasses that can be used in the shade garden.
And just to be clarified, grass-like.
Grass-like, yeah.
Yeah, not true grasses.
Well, I mean, is Hakanakloa considered a true grass?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Well,
so,
maybe it is.
Hakanakloa,
Japanese forest grass is the common name.
Japanese forest grass. And this is another one that's going to be, you can get the green foliage, but we're going to talk about the all gold, different ones. I forget what the
Aureola.
Yeah. Areola.
The Aureola has some variegation, some gold variegation in the leaves, and then the all gold is just straight up all gold.
Yeah. Areola.
It's Aureola. That's how
Areola. This is one that you're going to have to give it some time to get going. Once established and once it likes where it's at, it's
a very slow to get going, and it'll need a lot of water up front. But once it starts to take over an area, not take over an area, but once it gets happy, it creates a really nice dense.
Dude, it's a banger.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally have never had great luck with it.
Yeah.
I just feel like our soils aren't great.
Because where I notice it getting nicer is when we move east across the state.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some really nice stuff over in like Granville, and they have much more acidic soil even in Granville than we do over here.
Yeah. Or places where like the soil is like super rich and fertile,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. But yeah. I've seen some nice stands of it up in northern Michigan and really all around the country. But
it's really pretty. When I think of it as like a weeping grass.
Mm-hmm.
Like you think of Carl Forster grass, and it's known for just standing up straight and stout. This is just the opposite. It's got these nice thick blades, and they just kind of fall over one another.
Yeah,
like a little waterfall of
they get
Aureolas and
water features. Yeah, around waterfalls and stuff.
Yeah, great addition to like a Japanese garden.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool, man. And then really just any of the Carrick's Ever series, Everillo, Evergold, Ever this, Ever that. There's a lot of good Carrick's out there. Everest that are going to be solid yellows, green and yellow variegated, white and green variegated. But any of these, my personal favorite is, I believe it's Everillo's, the all yellow one, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Carrick's Everillo. It's just this super bright chartreusey colored foliage that really brightens up an area. I know Brenna's got some planted in mass at Donegal Cliffs Park underneath some big Zalkova trees in a shade garden, and she has that river of it that runs through there, and it is just like, wow. I mean, it really, really stands up. I think there's photos of you maybe like a year after it was planted. And I want to say that you're literally like laying in it, acting like you're swimming through this river of...
It is good stuff.
Yeah, but...
I killed all the stuff we have at home. I think I was a little bit too greedy with the cutback once, and I just like killed it. But so I'm not allowed to touch the Carrick's at home anymore.
No?
No.
I'm sorry.
But the other one we have is Everest, I believe, which is thicker blades, and it's got the white and green, and it's also really bright.
Yeah, I planted a nice stand of it, and it was doing really well at the development building in Dublin. And then the contractors came in, sheared this stuff all the way to the ground. I mean, like, and then as soon as they got done shearing it all the way to the ground, they just blew like 3 inches of mulch in on top of it. And it has never...
That's probably what I did to our
It has
Everillo.
never come back.
Sorry,
I mean,
Benny.
I have it like, it's real spotty where it has come back, but so disappointing.
Was that lightning?
That it might have been. I don't know.
Holy shit.
Yeah, pretty disappointing in that, but yeah. I don't know. And you got anything else to brighten up people's lives?
I mean, lots of Carrick's are available, but that Ever series has a lot of color to them. You know, they're just not the green ones, I don't want to discount the green ones, but we're talking about brightening up the shade. So anything in that Ever series is going to do you right.
And if you really want to brighten up the shade garden, then invest in some outdoor landscape lighting, and that'll really brighten up
Look
your
at
shade
you.
spot.
That's another topic for another day.
Dude, I need some landscape lighting.
You can do all
house.
the talking that day. I'll just say funny things.
I mean, I don't know a lot about it.
More than I do.
Maybe, but I know I want some and need some here at my house.
Yeah.
I've got a few trees that I want to spotlight at night, and then I kind of want to wash out the brick across the front of the house a little bit, and I want some path lights.
Okay.
So, am I crazy for wanting
No,
some
but
landscape lighting?
you do know more about that stuff than you're giving yourself credit for.
Okay. If you say so, my friend. So, I mean, that's really all we've got this week for brightening up your shady spot. If you think of anything else that would also work, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know. We keep these notes in our Apple Notes thing or whatever, and constantly adding to it so we can fall back on it. And we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what it is you want to hear from us. I know my brother and I were talking this morning, and he does not have a green thumb. And he said, man, you guys just need to do an episode where it's like, so you've never, ever, ever stepped foot in a garden before. Mm-hmm. Here's where to start. For the person that has never picked up a shovel, has never thought about a plant, doesn't know what the hell an annual is, a perennial is, anything like that. He said he would love an episode like that. It's not really geared towards probably a lot of our listeners because it's super basic, but
we've been trying to use a little bit less technical. I've been making a concerted effort to like use less technical verbiage.
I haven't
during this.
I'm sorry.
There was a couple times where I kind of paused things out and made sure I said common names during this. So I agree that we could do an episode like that, but hang with us. We're trying to create episodes that are, good for any type of listener.
Yeah, it's hard for us because in the work setting and in our normal lives, we don't use the common names.
We don't.
So it's like when you don't ever use the common names in your everyday talk to come in for 1 hour a week and try and forget everything that you typically would use and go to the common name is tough. So
it's I don't want people to think we're just being like smarty pants here either. The Latin name is the same here as it is in Australia, as it is in Asia. Like, that's the Latin name. Everybody around the world calls it that same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas common names, there could be a different common name for something here than there is in Toledo, let alone Brazil or China or anywhere across the world. There could be thousands of common names.
Sure, yeah.
So in order to stay on the same page with the people that we're talking to every day, the Latin name just makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I've had people that are like, "Oh, you use a Latin name, smarty pants," and it's like, it's not a flex, or it's not about trying to be smart. It's just like that's just how we talk, when we talk about this stuff, like as horticulturists and stuff. So yeah. I mean, we're learning.
Here's my analogy: if there's a giant group of people standing in front of me, and I say, "Come here, buddy." How many people are going to just like be like, is he talking to me? Should I go? If I say, come here, Michael G. Robinson.
Yeah.
Michael G. Robinson will come out of the crowd.
God, dude, Michael G. Robinson's a cool dude.
Do you see what I mean, though?
I do.
There's only one of them in that crowd, but they're all buddy.
Have you ever met Michael G. before?
No.
Oh, you would really like him.
Okay. Is he neighbor?
No, he's not a neighbor, just an old friend.
Okay. I'll have to look him up on Facebook.
Oh, boy.
Let's be done.
Okay, you ready to be done? All right, let's enjoy this thunderstorm, people. Stay cool. Enjoy the shade garden. I'm Matt, joined with Timmy. We all love you harder, +2.
Enjoy the shade garden, but if you can, just get in the AC.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
Go to the basement. Go to the dungeon. So
okay.
Right.
Love you harder.
+2. Yep. No, you don't.
Bye.
Bye-bye.